Hi everyone, welcome to 2025. It is the 5th day of the year. So much has changed in my life, including my appearance. I have a fringe now. So much has changed. As I said, my living setup has changed now. It's been, I think, around 5 weeks since I've actually sat down and filmed a video, and I've really missed you guys quite a lot actually. I have heard a lot of comments, or I've seen rather a lot of comments in my comment section around just some of my videos. A lot of support, a lot of amazing comments, and I'm so glad what I have talked about previously has resonated with you guys, but there have been comments about people saying like they don't like the music or the pop-ups that I put in my videos kind of freak people out. And given that I am dealing with neurodivergent people with sensory sensitivities, it makes sense, and I'm very sorry that it's taken me a while to kind of get the hang of my style of editing. New year, new style of video. I really love watching relaxing kind of videos, and so it makes sense that this is the kind of direction that I want to take my channel. How is everyone doing? How was your New Year's? How was your Christmas? I had my first Christmas and New Year's, my first white Christmas, my first white New Year's. But I also wanted to say to anyone that's been following me for a long time that I began this year in grief. My friend, neighbor, verging on family member at this point, Peter, I have created content with him in the past when I lived in the same town as him. He passed away last week, and it was pretty surprising. He was 90 years old last month. That sounds pretty wild to, be surprised that a 90-year-old has passed away, but when I tell you this man was full of life and just wanted to see to 120, I really believed like if anyone could do it, it would be him. So it is a surprise and it is heartbreak. I just felt like it needed just an acknowledgement in today's video, because I know that there are people that have been with me since the days of Peter. I want this year to be a really amazing one for the work that I'm doing with autism. I really want this year to be the year that I finish off my book, my manuscript, and start getting it out. So lots of exciting things that I have set myself the goal of, basically. But anyway, that is just my little update, sit down. Sometimes it's nice to kind of know the person that you're listening to. Let's jump into today's video. Things I wish I knew before my autism diagnosis. Something that I have talked about in previous videos is the fact that I look at my life now as pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis. My life is able to be kind of separated in that way, and that might sound kind of weird, but for a black and white thinker like myself, it actually makes things just a little bit easier to kind of understand. I think with the end of a year, and possibly one of the biggest years of my life was 2024. I don't know about you guys, but I am a big reflector. I reflect on who I am, who I'm becoming, what choices I've made, what have worked for me, what haven't worked for me. Really just trying to get very specific on who I am, because I think that this is something that a lot of autistic people really struggle with, is who we actually are, what kind of person we actually are, because so much of our life is masked. The first thing that I wish I could say to my child self is, you're not all bad, you just don't have all the answers. I think when you go your entire childhood without answers, there are a lot of misconceptions placed on you, whether those are other diagnoses that are wrong or just actual really harsh parenting, because you have meltdowns and your parents kind of don't really understand what's going on. it really does kind of imprint the child's brain believing that they are inherently born bad. And perhaps if they have other siblings like myself who do not have the same kind of issues, you definitely compare yourself. There's a comparison just within the household. Why can they get their shit together but I can't? And in my case, my brother was younger than me. He had physical impairments. We were in hospitals because of him, and he still didn't have the meltdowns that I had. And so inherently, I believed that I was born. I've always described myself as the devil child. I probably played into this role more and more as time went on. It was like, okay, well, I am bad. I'm a terrible child. So let's just go all out, because what does it matter? I'm a bad daughter, I'm a bad sister. What I now realize is I was not bad. I was reacting from a place of overwhelm, of no one having the answers, not even my parents. And of course you don't know these things when you're a child. You don't know really about diagnoses. You don't know about the DSM book full of mental disorders. I mean, I honestly probably, if I knew about the book, would have probably enjoyed reading it. But nevertheless, like, you just kind of absorb the energy, the labels around you, and get on with it. But just know that you weren't bad. You were never a bad child. You just weren't having your needs met. You are not living in a horrible world. You're just not living the life that works for you yet. I think I can speak for so many of us when I say autistic people kind of naturally take the glass half empty kind of approach to life. We are naturally pretty negative people, and it's not that we want to be negative, it's not that we want to be critical, but life wasn't built for us, and so naturally we are always ready to pick out the flaw in a situation or never actually be present, because we're always having to stand alert to what could possibly go wrong. Naturally, I think when you carry this mindset into a lot of situations, you don't actually find the enjoyment until after a memory has passed. You know, I can remember being a child and saying, like, nothing in my life makes me happy. While that wasn't entirely true, I think what it was that I was trying to say is that this life, the life that I'm being forced into, just doesn't work for me, but I don't know what does. And I think when you then become an adult and may or may not get a diagnosis, or you self-diagnose, you then start having to get very specific on, okay, the life that everyone around me does not work for my needs. What do I need to do? And it's really about venturing out on your own and making different decisions than your parents did, most likely, your friends are making most likely, and it can be a lonely experience. But I think that once you figure out that life, once you figure out the things that do bring you just that little sparkle, it's like a snowball effect. You get to know yourself more, which in turn allows you to make better, more specific, intentional decisions for your life, which only adds to the happiness. It's not a horrible life, it's just a bad day. And if you're not happy, you just haven't found the life that you're meant to be living just yet, but it will happen. It will all make sense one day. Oh God, this one I think can heal so many of your guys' inner childs. You know, one day it will all make sense. One day you'll have the answers. One day you'll be able to watch someone on the internet who's talking about these things that you've struggled with a lifetime internally. And if you've gotten to this point right now in your life where things are starting to make sense, just hold on to that and remember this in times when there is a lot of confusion, when there is depression, when there is sadness, when there is grief. Just remember, it will all make sense one day, just like this is right now for you. There are others who will understand you, and there are words to describe your experience. If little Elena could see me now, you know, sitting in an apartment in Toronto, Canada, talking to my camera on a Sunday morning, sharing my experiences, and people all around the world watching from their homes or watching from their work or wherever they are, and finding validation in what I have to say like that. All I know is this is what I was made to do, and I just want you to know that there are others that understand you. I think there is such power in knowing vocabulary to describe your experience. autism being the overarching word to describe my experiences was extremely helpful, but talking about meltdowns and shutdowns and overwhelm, sensory overwhelm, like all of these things, I didn't know what they were. So as a child, I'm saying, I don't know why, but I can't deal with this. I can't deal with the noise, and that just sounds like you're being too much. You've got too loud opinions. You are too picky as a person. But saying I am autistic and there is a reason for my overwhelm, I am not being too much. I am not trying to inconvenience anyone. I'm just sharing what is occurring in my brain. That goes such a long way. Just to give you guys an example of how healing it is to hear your experience shared from somebody else. For me, touch is a very big, overwhelming sensory issue for me, along with my hearing, along with volumes that are too loud. With touch, I could never, even as a child, touch dry things. So freshly washed sheets, the majority of the world love this. For me, I cannot stand freshly washed sheets because it's this crispiness that I cannot touch. It's just too crisp of linen that I just can't deal with at all. And so in order to fold my washing or whatever, just everyday life, I always have to have moisturizer on my hands, because something about dry on dry, like dry hands on dry sheets or dry clothes, makes me want to vomit. So maybe wetter hands, moisturized hands kind of counteracts that. I don't know, can't explain it. It's just a weird thing that I've always done. And I read this in the very early days of getting my diagnosis. I was all about reading books and trying to understand other people's experiences. And I read that this was an experience that the author had, was always having to have moisturizer on her hands. And I cried, hearing that, reading that, knowing that there was another person in the world who had this experience that I thought was just so unusual. I believe was one of the best things I could have ever found in my life, truly. That experience that I had is what I'm trying to do for you guys, is the reason I give these examples of my life is so someone on the other side is oh my God, yes, I've done that forever. Thank God someone's talking about it. Oh, this next one. So important. You were right all along. It wasn't just anxiety. Trust yourself. I've talked about this before, but I think autistic people inherently do not trust themselves. They look to other people to either validate them or tell them you're right, you're wrong. And in that way, we can come across really, really childlike. When I'm on my own, I don't question anything I do. I'm yep, I know what I'm doing. But as soon as I'm out there operating in the world and I'm doing something or someone's perceiving me, I'm thinking there's a right and a wrong way to do this, and they're going to tell me. I can't just go with what I know. But as a child, I was told at 6 that it was anxiety. And it was anxiety stemming from the health issues that my family were going through. It was jealousy because my brother was always in hospital, and so I was the jealous older sister who couldn't deal with her brother getting attention. And I knew at 6, this isn't actually my problem. But I didn't have the answers. I didn't have anything to counter what they were saying. I was 6 years old. They were the adults, so they must know. So I disregarded my own thoughts and I played into this role of being the jealous older sister. And so that's probably why the diagnosis came at 25 and not 6. Trust yourself. That's all I can say. You live with yourself every single day. You know the thoughts that go through your mind. You know the struggles you go through. You know the triumphs you go through. No one can tell you anything about yourself better than you can. Trust that. That's all I can say. This lesson's a new lesson that I can now add to my list. You will live a normal life and you'll do things far greater than you ever thought was possible. There were a lot of rules that I put in place for my life as I grew older, as a teenager. Traveling was something, no, I don't have any interest in it. I can't see it happening, but if it does, great. If it doesn't, that wasn't the life I was meant to live. Driving was another one of those. No, not for me. Having a sociable life, having a job, having a successful, positive brain. All these things, I kind of put rules in place because that's what we do as autistic people. We try and put things in boxes because sometimes it's easier to understand. And I have broken through a lot of those boxes. I'm from New Zealand. I currently live in Toronto. Getting on that plane and coming here, while I did it with somebody, I am now traveling a lot. Just last month, I traveled to Dallas, I traveled to Austin, I traveled to Virginia, and I traveled back to Toronto, all on my own. I got to tick off some bucket list items last month, and these things, like, I never dreamed were possible for me. And I'm not saying that, travel is the ultimate or driving is the ultimate, but these were personal rules that I put in place for myself because I thought it was going to be too hard for me. And what I realize now is it's not. I just have to do it, and then it's not so bad. It becomes a little bit easier. I challenge you as the viewer right now just to think about, some of the boundaries, some of the blockages that you've maybe ruled against your life. I can't do this. I will never be able to do this. I will never have children. I will never be married. Whatever it is, I just challenge you to open up your thinking and just think, is that 100% true? Is it 100% true that you will never do those things? Well, you've got the rest of your life. So maybe that will be the case. Maybe you decide, actually, I don't want those things. But do you not want those things because it seems too hard? Or do you genuinely not want those things? I just challenge you to challenge your thinking. And the last one, you are not dumb. The education system just was not built for you. I think the stereotypical idea that people have around autism is that you are born with intelligence, that you are far above your age grade, you are, doing things that no one else is doing, you are passing every exam at the highest grade, and for me, that was not my experience. Now, being 28 years old, I now realize that maybe I could have done those things. Maybe I could have been, a really, really amazing student. It's not that I was doing excessively bad, but I think the pressures of comparison, the fear of being perceived, being tested, really, really freaked me out. And so naturally, when you're too busy focusing on everything else but the work in front of you, you're not going to do as good. And so you grow up, and a lot of children have this. You see your friends' grades, you see your grades, it's embarrassing. You do put these titles on yourself that I am dumb. I just wish I knew this before I was diagnosed, because again, it might have countered some of my self-esteem issues. So there you guys go. Today's first video of the year was just a sit down chat with me. I hope you guys enjoyed this new style of video that I'm doing. Please let me know down below. I want it to be calm. I want it to be an environment, a positive experience for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see any more of my neurodivergent content, I post all the time. I'll leave my links down below, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye.